My fellow Americans, Politihut is brought to you by the State of Israel. Come enjoy the warm, sunny beaches, the fine dining, the shopping, and it's the only democracy of bikini-wearing girls in the Middle East. Come visit Israel. After all, you're paying for it.
A little hoot! And now, from a lonely little corner of the Bronx.
Hey everybody, we have an amazing guest today. This is Matthew Hoh, and he has such a track record. I can't begin to tell you. He was a Marine for 10 years and made this amazing transformation into running for U.S. Senate and becoming this prolific writer about progressive causes. So Matt, can you just say a few words to people to let them know who you are?
Well, thanks, Jackie. I appreciate you having me with you. I live here in North Carolina. I was raised in the Northeast, joined the Marine Corps after college, took part in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was also at the State Department for a bit of time. And, essentially the last 15 years of my life, I've been working on anti-war and pro-peace efforts, as well as other progressive causes, as you said.
Yeah, so Trump just said that we might put troops into Gaza, which boggles my mind.
Oh, essentially, yes, you would be able to. You would be able to. You would have in this situation, if it was to go to that place where American troops would be in Palestine, whether in Gaza, the West Bank, both, the resistance they would face would be no different than the resistance that we faced in Iraq, that we faced in Afghanistan, that we faced in Vietnam, that was faced in Nicaragua by the Marines in the early 20th century, right? That was faced, So that type of human story, that the resistance to occupation is something that is universal and it's constant. And it's something that, you can go and you can look at American history and the creation of the American empire, that of course begins with two primary episodes, two foundational episodes, the genocide of the Native Americans, and then of course the enslavement of Africans. And you see both in that, the success by the Americans in being able to destroy, right, to be able to destroy resistance for the Native Americans by extermination, and by the Africans through a process of just cruel and forceful chattel slavery that broke the ability to resist. It is always, but if you read that history about slavery, you see that the slave resistance, slave rebellion was always a concern. It never really, I should correct myself, because it never really could be truly broken. And that became an issue over and over again, right? And that's the reason why you have abolition in some states, as well as abolition in countries around the world, particularly after the Haitians rebel, right? I mean, that you have this realization that you're never going to break the resistance. And so this is always going to be a danger to us, this rebellion. And so, I mean, this aspect of resistance to occupation, the resistance to exploitation, what have you, is a storyline that runs throughout America's imperial history, beginning with the very first stories we have. Certainly, if you were to have an American military presence in Palestine, the resistance they would face would be similar to what the Israelis faced and similar to what we faced, again, in Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam.
Well, you just came back from Palestine.
Yes, I was there in November. I was in the West Bank for 8 days.
Right. And you actually you went to the Gaza border in Israel.
Yes.
Where they have that platform set up to view the war. And I read your article. You came back and you said that you don't see much hope going on over there. But you did see other things. And one of those things was resistance of the Palestinians.
Correct. this aspect of hope is something that people, I think, get upset about, or people are very concerned that there is hope. And very often there is not hope. There is acceptance of what is coming. And that's what I found amongst the Palestinians. I mean, there were some that were hopeful, but more than not, I found that hope wasn't the concern for them. It was about dealing with what was coming, with what they have been enduring for decades, but also with what was coming. In this case, in the West Bank, it's the annexation of the West Bank, which will include genocidal aspects similar to Gaza, particularly in the rural parts of the West Bank. And those are ongoing. Operation Iron Wall, as the Israelis call it, began several weeks ago, and this is seems pretty clear that this is the opening phase of their annexation campaign. And so what I found with the Palestinians, different than what I saw even say when I was there in 2017, was Palestinians speaking openly about wanting to get out, particularly those with children, and that's entirely understandable. And it's not, this is not, I think people take this as being derogatory toward them. How can you say they're not going to stand and fight? How can you say they're going to surrender? I'm not saying any of those things. What I'm saying is that if you have children and you understand what the situation is, what is coming, then you want to get those children out. And that's what I found over and over again. But there's also a very large element of the population, a very large percent of the population that won't leave and that will resist. And that will resist as their families before have resisted, as their parents resisted, their grandparents resisted, their great grandparents resisted. They will do the same. That is the spirit. This human aspect, this human quality that exists again universally and historically that you see in the Palestinian people, and so certainly up against the iron and the steel of Israel and America, where does hope fit into that? But other aspects do, things like resistance, and then I also spoke about defiance, solidarity, and resistance. Excuse me, because I had four that I had listed, and now I'm blinking on the fourth one.
If I can help you out.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I love what you wrote: defiance, resistance, solidarity, and resilience.
Resilience, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
But in that, those are the qualities that you see. And there's a Arabic word, samud, which means steadfastness, which many people who are familiar with Palestine are familiar with, this idea of steadfastness that defines the Palestinian people, how they will not be removed, their spirit will not be broken, they will not give in, they will not surrender. And that's entirely the case. And both things can exist. You can want to get your children out for their safety, as well as resist, remain, be defiant, and so forth. So that's what I saw. And it was striking, though, because there was this acceptance of what was coming, this dread, but a perseverance that was there. Again, I think my desire not to use the word hope, why I don't like using it particularly in this sense, dealing with Palestine, is because it's to me very stark and clear what the Israelis and the Americans plan to do, and the fact that they have the wherewithal, and the fact that there is really not much of anything on the Palestinian side that can prevent that from happening. So unless you're hoping for a deus ex machina, right, some external actor to come out, descend from the skies essentially to prevent whatever the Israelis and Americans have planned, and you just don't see that. Even if the Arab nations, not just the Arab nations, but to include other nations in the region, Turkey and Iran, other nations around the world, were to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, it's still the idea that they would prevent it or stop from what's occurring seems very far-fetched. So that's why I'm at this place where I don't like to use the word hope, because I didn't want to come back to the United States and give false hope to people. I felt as if then you're lying about what I saw, lying about what I experienced. And again, I think we're so in the U.S. so enamored with this idea of hope, defining everything. In particular, I think on people left wing progressive causes, you're supposed to have that element to you, almost like a spiritual element, if you will. And so people get upset when I say that, but that's essentially the way I view it: is that there is not hope, but there is resistance, there is defiance, there is solidarity, and there is resilience.
Well, those are very good points to remember. It, I can't understand myself. The last time I was in Palestine was way back in 2010. It was actually the day of the Mavi Marmara was attacked.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And at that time, the West Bank, part of it was a tourist attraction.
That is the one thing a bit, you feel guilty of, because we did go, as you said, to the Gaza border, and we were able to see the genocide from a distance. And, of course, you cannot see the intimate details, the personal details of it, but you can see the larger aspects. And, from a point mile and a half away on a very clear day, northern parts of Gaza, where at that point in November, the Surrender or Starve campaign was being carried out by the Israeli forces. This was the general's plan, and this was the ethnic cleansing of the north that the Israelis, for the most part, were fairly successful in conducting, and which seems like they will start up again once they determine they don't want the ceasefire to go on any longer. You could see only the ruined outlines of buildings. So from a mile and a half away from a hill on a clear day, you should be able to see 3, 4, 5-story buildings without a problem. And you could only see shells and ruined carcasses of structures. That was it. And of course, the great big dust clouds from the Israeli earth-moving equipment as they destroyed more buildings, as they further, built out Israeli military positions, expanded the buffer zones for the Israeli military in those parts of Gaza. It was really quite overwhelming. But as I'll say, we did actually eat very well in the West Bank. As anyone who's visited knows, the food is unbelievable. But we were, you bring up the tourism. I just had a friend who went there as part of a solidarity protective mission. And, he said, just as when I went in, if you say you're a Christian and you're going to visit the holy places, they let you right in, particularly if you look like you and I, Jackie, right? We have names like you and I. Get right in because the Israelis need that revenue. You would be startled, I think, by how empty everything was. When we were in Bethlehem, we were near we were near Manger Square, not even half a street from it. And my friend and I stopped and got coffee from a vendor on the street, guy on the street, and he said, "You're the first foreigners I've seen all day." This was like at 6 o'clock at night, right? I mean, it was empty. The entire I think probably the best example of how much this has shocked the Israeli economy, and of course has really devastated the Palestinian economy, because Palestinian economy being strangled under occupation. Now this blow to the Israeli economy, you can imagine how it even puts more pressure on the Palestinian economy, more distress, I should say. We had a morning, one morning, a Friday morning. We were supposed to meet with a couple of Palestinians in Jerusalem, and they weren't allowed into Jerusalem, so they couldn't come in to talk to us. So we had a free morning, so we went and did some sightseeing. We went to the Mount of Olives, and if people have ever been there, of course, you're across from the old city. This was a beautiful 10, 11 a.m. in the morning, beautiful blue skies, probably 70 degrees, absolutely lovely. For an hour, we were the only people there. There should have been 5,000 people there. Not exaggerating. There should have been, where you can't move type of thing. And the same thing too, wherever you went. I went to a couple of days later after the delegation ended. I had some free time. I walked through the old city and it was empty. I've got a photo of me in front of the, the western wall of the temple. And you could see behind me a handful of people at the wall. And that was it. That was it. Last time I was there, it was probably 4 or 5 people deep, waiting their turn to get up. Right. I mean, that's what it was like. So you walk through the old city, and the souvenir stores, the souvenir stalls, and many of them are closed. Many of them are closed. The vendors, the shops that are there selling household goods and food and things like that are still open for the residents. But for the tourist type sales, there's no one to sell to. I got a video of me walking up the Via Dolorosa, the path that Christ carried his cross, and I passed one person walking up it, and that person was a local. You could tell he was from there. And that was like on a Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Should have been throngs of people, and no. And so, there's a lot to this about what's been occurring these last 15, 16 months. And even that, then you say, well, okay, if this is the case where Israel is bleeding out economically, and it certainly is, and there's all kinds of data to prove that and to show that 60,000 Israeli businesses have gone out of business in the last 16 months, et cetera, et cetera. You say, how does this continue then? Why are they so confident? Why do they want to prolong this? The Israelis, and then you look, it's because they have the backing of the United States, and in particular, say economically, the Israelis are keeping themselves afloat by issuing bonds, issuing debt, and the reason they're able to do that is because they have a loan guarantee from the United States. So the United States effectively backs any debt that Israel issues, and any bonds that Israel puts out. The United States is a guarantor for those, and that's how Israel, even though the credit agencies have downgraded Israel. The credit rating agencies have downgraded Israel 4 times, I think, in the last 16 months. Wow. They're still able to sell 4 times as many bonds as they normally do. And that's what's keeping the Israel economy. And then the idea being, and I think it gets back to what you were talking about, is the idea that I believe that their plan is, after 2 or 3 years of this, things go back to normal, that we go back to business. And we keep it quiet.
Oh, Matt, that's really interesting. But wait a minute. We have to hear from the Prime Minister of Israel, your favorite relocation counselor.
Weary and lost and nowhere to go. Just listen to our friend, your favorite relocation counselor, Bibi Netanyahu.
Tired of urban living? The overcrowding, the stress, the traffic. Having to leave 4 hours ahead just to be on time at work? You try to drink more water. You limit your tech device time to just a few minutes a day, and you live on just enough calories to stay alive. And still can't lose weight? Well, we've got the answer for you. Head south to sunny Rafah. Wait a second.
Friends, I've got the answer for you.
Who are you?
It's me, your friendly neighborhood relocation expert, Bibi Netanyahu. Look, folks, Gaza is so yesterday. And what a better time to consider a move, because your future happiness lies in Saudi Arabia. Yes, Saudi Arabia, where you can have it all. The sun, the fun, and there are jobs galore. Right now, they're taken by those Indians and Bangladeshians. But why should they get it all? Yes, we know that Palestinians are a highly educated people, but physical labor is so good for the body and soul. And those folks who live there are nasty little Arabs like you. As they say in Rydia, the sun is hot, and so are the girls.
So I can actually see their arms? Oh my Allah!
Relax, Amit. It's not exactly Tel Aviv. So hurry. Our first transport is leaving soon and is filling up fast.
But I can't leave right now. My mother is sick and old and lost her legs when you drop bombs onto the safe area the leaflets instructed us to go to.
Israel regrets the loss of any civilian life. Can't make it to good old Saudi Arabia? Try the Congo. Yes, our fall 24 trip could be the best of your life.
The Congo? What?
I'm working on it.
Matt. So let's get back to your conversation. Okay, so do you think that we will see American troops in Gaza?
I don't know. I mean, it's this administration, Jackie. I said a week or so ago to somebody, I've given up thinking something's impossible. And I don't know what they believe that is necessary and what they believe this administration, believes is possible or doable. I don't think how they could look at this, but again, they believe that, like, as we were talking earlier, every generation believes that they're different than other generations. One of the things about, say, Afghanistan, after being in Iraq and also being in positions where I was part of policy making or seeing policy being done for the Iraq and Afghan wars in D.C., I always had like this Forrest Gump experience where I always found myself like as a junior person in a very senior place. Mm-hmm. And but with in spring of 2009, when I get to Afghanistan and speaking with both military and civilian officers over there, and they're saying how they're essentially going to do this and they're going to escalate the war and they're going to surge, and I would say, look, we tried this in Iraq, it didn't work. I mean, the idea that the surge worked is a PR thing. It didn't work, and why do you think this is going to be? And it's and essentially the argument was that's because that was the Bush administration. That was because that they are the Republicans, we're the Democrats. That was those are generals, and now these new generals have learned their lessons. So again, it's feeling like they're exempt from history, exempt from human realities, right? Exempt from the experiences that this is why you go back and you look at the Romans and the Greeks in other religions, and they would define superhuman events through the gods, right? So things that were uncontrollable by man were personified and defined as gods by, right? I mean, in order to understand, to tell stories, to communicate, but also to essentially to warn in many ways. And and if you look at the Romans, Mars, of course, their god of war, was their most powerful god. And it was the god that was most easily the Roman military's respect for the god of war was very clear when you look back at it. And you didn't sacrifice something as simple as a dove or a goat. You sacrificed a bull. I think that's probably the easiest way to show their respect, because they understood the superhuman aspects of war, that war is simply uncontrollable. As I said before, on an individual level, you think that you're going to be moral in a war, and no, war is going to make you its agent, and you will be an agent of its immorality. And the same goes on for levels above the individual. And so I think this administration, they will fall into the same trap, possibly. Whether there'll be American troops in Gaza, the Israelis have always been resistant to having anyone else help them. They will take the money, they will take the weapons and bombs and spare parts and things like that, protection at the United Nations, so on and so forth. But they've always been very resistant. They've always never wanted to have direct American military support. Just not who they are. So the idea that they would want the Americans to come in and do this with them, that goes against what we've seen from them before. But the idea being that if the Israelis think that there is a time constraint here, that they have essentially just a few years to finish the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, to finish the genocide, as well as carry out the annexation of the West Bank, which will include ethnic cleansing and genocide as well, then that they can't do it both concurrently by themselves. They just don't have the resources, the people, the wherewithal to do. So in that sense, would they want American support directly? And I read it to you before. I think read it again, because I don't think it's so much what we speculate or what we envision happening, but of course, what do the Israelis want? I mean, certainly it's been made clear by President Trump that he will provide whatever support they ask for. The first night of his presidency, he declares, he gets asked about the ceasefire, whether the ceasefire in Gaza will hold, and his answer is, I don't know. It's not our war, it's their war. So he speaks very clearly that he is here just to support. Right. I mean, he is in a sense almost as if someone's boss or their parent even offering full-fledged support for someone's endeavor. Hey, you just tell me what you need. I've got your back. You can kind of see that type of dynamic. And, Netanyahu, Benjamin, the prime minister of Israel, he comes back from his visit to the United States, joyous, celebratory, so happy. I'm just going to quote what he said because I've got to sit in here. But last Monday, he said, Netanyahu said to his people he was meeting with in Israel, "This trip and the conversations we held with the President of the United States included additional incredible achievements that can guarantee the security of Israel for generations. I am not exaggerating. I'm not overstating. There are opportunities here for possibilities that I don't think we ever dreamed of, or at least until the last few months, they didn't seem possible, but they are possible." So what is he talking about? What are these things that we never dreamed of? Is that it? Is that we never dreamed of having American troops on the ground here, right? Is that it? Or is this pertaining to Iran? Or is this something completely that we don't even have floating around in our heads as a possibility? Because Netanyahu says that the Israelis themselves never dreamed of something like this. So this is the real danger here, is that what will be the ask from the Israelis? How do they want to carry this out? The time constraints they feel they have. And certainly we'll see. I'm not confident that you'll see any real form of resistance from neighboring nations, as well as nations from around the world. I mean, you look even at countries like South Africa, and South Africa, of course, leading the genocide case against Israel in the International Court of Justice. And South Africa, Israel has two major power plants that run on coal, provide about 20 or 25% of electricity for the country. And South Africa is one of the top 4 exporters of coal to Israel still. Right. Even as they leave it. Right. You know, I mean, so you see that even with, like, I was in Ireland in December, and I went there speaking to the Irish and saying, "I'm so grateful for your government and the way they've led in their condemnation of Israel." And the pushback I got, the hostility I got for saying that, was that they simply they see their government as being duplicitous. You know, there's been a raft of legislation in Ireland that has not gone through that actually would put some teeth, some strength behind what the Israelis were saying. Well, I'm sorry, what the Irish were saying. But even to some of the things that were explained to me, that in the last year, Irish trade with Israel with regards to called dual use products, so things that can be used for both commercial purposes and military purposes, has increased 7-fold. Right. So, right. I mean, exactly. Whoa. So you have this duplicity. And this is why, going back to this conversation about the Palestinian people and this idea of hope, they understand this. You know, they understand that who do we have to depend upon? And that's why solidarity with the Palestinians is such an important thing, and why it's so important for people, if they can, to go to Palestine, to be in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Of course, that's not possible for many, many people. And so you find other actions, and they are grateful. I mean, you see the statements that come from their leadership expressing gratitude to those outside of Palestine who are standing, you know, who are speaking, you know, doing what they can. But the reality is that what governments are actually going to do something that has a meaningful effect on the situation. Because even if the International Court of Justice rules that Israel has been carrying out a genocide, what actually comes from that? Right? What actually comes from that? If the ICG says, yes, this is fine genocide, they refer that to the UN Security Council for action. And then, of course, the Americans veto it, whatever comes up from it. Right. So, I mean, the Palestinians, I think, are aware of this. So it's you know, this comes back to us then of what can we do, you know, as individuals or as, you know, local groups or larger national or international efforts to do something. And even if it is just standing in solidarity, even if it is just, you know, performing acts of witness and testimony.
So do you have any practical suggestions?
Well, certainly there are, you know, a large number of several groups, and if people want to get contact with me through, you can get contact with me through X or Twitter or through Instagram or through my Substack. Happy to share a list of organizations that I know people have gone to Palestine with, either as part of like an educational delegation or as part of a protective solidarity mission. There are organizations. I think there are so many groups out there soliciting for money. I hesitate to say you should give money to such and such. I give money to UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Administration, which of course has now been banned by Israel.
Right.
But they are still trying to operate to the degree that they can. There are other groups out there, Children's Defense International for Palestine, the Palestinian Children's Rescue Committee. There's a number of large groups out there, and then there's a lot of smaller groups, and then there's a number of GoFundMes and individual things, and certainly people can support directly like that. But I think what I would suggest too is find your local Palestinian organization and ask them how you can help. I think that's probably the best thing, just directly to work with people in your local community, whether it be a Palestinian group, whether it be an Arab group, whether it be a Jewish group. Certainly many chapters of Jewish Voice for Peace all throughout the country that people can be involved with, and so provide solidarity, support that way. And of course, those types of folks, those organizers, will have also better ideas of more concrete and tangible things that people can take part in. So there are, a number of ways that people can help. And then, of course, speaking, not just attending the marches and the rallies and the vigils and sending off the petitions to our members of Congress, but speaking more generally about this conversationally with friends and family, continuing that drumbeat and just trying to get people to understand individually, over time. That seems like a drop in the bucket, but over time, those things do build, and you never know who you're going to influence and what they're going to do. This is a story about land theft.
So that's all for us today here at Politihoot. Please leave a like or subscribe to the show, or leave a comment below. You can also go to our Facebook page at Politihoot and check into Podline FM. You then can record your own voice and leave your own message that we might play on the show. Love to hear what you think.
A little hoot!